Good evening from Qatar. It is my very first time visiting this country, also first time visiting the Middle Eastern country, so I feel I have a lot of things to share with you guys, and welcome back to Niki Daily. I'm walking in the downtown of Doha, the capital of Qatar. It is my fourth day in the country, and I experienced a little bit of local life here, talked to a few people, and got the first impression of being here as a short-term tourist. So in this video I'm gonna talk about how do I feel being in this country. I'll talk about the things that I noticed here, some little culture shocks and stuff like that. Show you a little bit around this area of the city. It's real downtown of Doha, quite modern, quite good. This beige color looks dope, really. And this area of the city is called Msheikhreb or something like that. Local language, like Arab language, is way too difficult for me to remember anything in it. Don't recall a single word yet. Also didn't get a chance to practice any Arabic language because everybody here can speak English. And that is the very first thing that I learned about Qatar. It's very international. Like before arriving here, the only thing that I knew about this country is its geographical location. I knew where it's located, I didn't know anything else. Then last year, when Qatar was hosting FIFA World Cup, I learned some other stuff about the country. I watched a few international media's investigations, also some individual YouTubers' investigations about FIFA World Cup and the problem about migrant workers here, and that was the only knowledge of me about Qatar. Once I got here, I understood what actually is going on here, at least on like very shallow level, and upon the first day of getting here, literally I haven't known that before. Just after I landed, I realized that the population of Qatar is actually not Qatari citizens. There are anything between 3 and 4 million people, around 4 million people live in Qatar. But only less than 10% of people living here are actually citizens of Qatar. The rest of people living here, they are migrants, migrant workers. Some of them coming from European countries, from America, and they have very decent pay, very decent job positions, and they live here a great lifestyle, not taking into account the heat they have to experience like every single day here. But majority, absolute majority of people who live here, they are coming from countries that are more poor than Qatar, let's say from African countries and also from Asian countries. A lot of people from India, Bangladesh, a lot of people from Pakistan, as well as a lot of people from Central African countries. So they come here to have not as great positions as most of Westerners, and there is a huge financial disproportion here. I met quite a few people while staying here, and I talked to a few Westerners who work for gas oil companies. Their income is incredibly high, enough for having a good, comfortable life in Doha. What a cute tram here. Lovely. I'm gonna show you and then continue. Little tram, just stop here. It's empty, not many people inside, air conditioning, so it's really nice to roam around this area of the city, having that tram carrying you around. But me today, talking to you, I am only like walking and recording this. The temperature is around 36-35 degrees Celsius in the evening, but I kind of adjusted already and I feel not that bad actually walking with this temperature in the evening. So, what I was talking about, the financial inequality. So there is a minority of people, Westerners, Americans, maybe Australians, I don't know, who have very decent income and they live great lifestyle. Majority of migrant workers, they are not like that. They literally earn anything for like 20, 30, even 40 times less than people who work on actually great jobs. Most of people, they make anything here, they make anything between 1 to 3,000 rial, which is like 250, 260 dollars to about $700 a month. I'm still confused about like transferring the money like USD to local reals, but $1 is roughly 4 Qatari reals. So most of people, they earn here around like 2,000 reals a month. Let's say somebody who works at McDonald's, somebody who works in a mall, somebody who is a service personnel. There's also a great amount of workers who work in construction, like buildings and stuff, building these beautiful skyscrapers, these fancy malls and stuff. They might earn anything between 1,000 to 1,600 reals a month, with accommodation and food covered, but the conditions they live in, they are not ideal. So basically, last few days I've been talking to people. I talked to somebody from McDonald's, I talked to a few people who work in restaurants, people who work in malls. I also met a few Westerners who work for rich oil companies, and that gave me some understanding of like what's going on here, but very, very shallow. It was interesting to explore, and the basic point is there are some problems with like migrant workers, but it is not problems with them. It's actually they are being exploited, and a lot of foreigners who come here, let's say from India. I talked to an Indian guy. He was promised to have a job here, but once he arrived here, the agent who took him to Qatar from India just disappeared. And the guy, he paid more than $1,000 to actually get the position in Qatar. He arrived here and he didn't know what to do after like getting to the airport. And I think that is not the only like person experiencing this kind of stuff. I'm gonna talk a bit more about that in the main video that I will upload about Qatar, maybe like a month later, I don't know. Moving forward, that was the first thing that I saw upon arrival, that there is a big disproportion about citizens of Qatar, like 300,000 people maybe, and millions of foreigners coming here for work. The next thing that I learned about here is that life here is expensive and cheap in different areas of life. Let's say food, drinks, alcohol, especially alcohol, rental apartments and stuff like that are expensive. But some things are super cheap, like fast food is rather cheap here, cheaper than in Russia at least. Taxis are unbelievably cheap. I couldn't believe that I could pay like $2 or $3 American for a really long ride that will take about 10-15 minutes in a huge car, like, is it SUV car, right? In a car like that. Hey, camera, I'm here. And pay only $2-3 for a ride with AC on, with like crazy. Wait, something is going on with my camera. Yeah, here. Food here is quite affordable too, taking into account how much money make like locals and Westerners. And the only people who actually struggle about like local prices, they are people who have low-paying jobs. And believe me, there are plenty of that here. But even with low-paying jobs, comparing to like people in Qatar who have decent pay, still people like migrants who come here, who choose to come to Qatar, they still earn way more than they possibly could make in their countries, which I can relate a lot, because when I was 20 years old, I moved out from Russia to China, and my income level, the money I was getting every month, I started to get like 4 times more money upon arrival to China, in the sense that this proportion just was growing and growing. It was quite interesting. I was just looking into like a coffee shop, real nice, good looking. Let me show you a little bit of Said. The name is Said, or maybe Said. Not sure if you can actually see the light well, but it's looking good. Said Roma. I'm walking around this neighborhood. It's very similar actually. These buildings, they're all around in one unified style. I just take rounds walking around here. Yeah. Another thing that I learned right after arriving, and that was the biggest impression, is climate, is the weather. Nothing cultural, just cruel desert climate. When you get outside in the afternoon, you get under the open sun, and it's so strong, the heat is so strong that you can stay only for like roughly minutes until you feel a little bit dizzy if you stay under open sun and you walk without a hat, and you feel sweaty, which makes me like take shower multiple times a day, like 3-4 times a day. It's different from anything I experienced before. Like in Asia, climate is hot and humid. Here is rather dry and even hotter. I never experienced like 45, 46 degrees Celsius, and that is actually not the hottest here in Qatar. During the summer, temperature can go like 50 plus, I believe. And people who live here, they said, Niki, you came like kind of when summer is about to end, it's still hot, but soon it's gonna be winter time. And their winter time is like, obviously not winter in my perception, but still, for people who live here, the weather gets slightly less hot and more pleasant, especially in the evening. Yeah, so basically every single afternoon I've been going somewhere to spend time indoors, either to like a mall, museum, coffee shop, wherever it is, staying in a hotel too, and only in the evening when the sun disappears you actually can walk normally. And I love walking, I love going places, but during the day the only possible option is to hop on a taxi and go to a place where you're gonna stay indoors. Today was a bit different for me. I was thinking about, I want to film something during the day, so I went to a couple of places, and oh man, that was hot. That was super hot. Yeah, I see we are 12 minutes in and I just making circles around that. I think I'm gonna show you one interesting place, and it's gonna take maybe 3-4 minutes of walk. Basically, this area of the city, very modern. This building I showed you, it's neighboring to the old quarter of the city that is called Souq Waqif. And it's quite touristy, trendy place. People go there. There's a lot of great food, and the interesting thing is that there's a borderline between the Souq Waqif and this area, and you literally can see the old buildings, old style architecture blending in into this modern area. I'm gonna bring you there, I'm gonna talk a bit more to you and share a few other things about like my impression here. So the biggest, another biggest thing is that I feel Qatar has several, let's say, parallel worlds or parallel lifelines. There are tourists like me who just get around the city, enjoys touristic sites that Qatar has to offer, which are great. The museums are great here, the food is incredible here, like the service itself is amazing. From tourist perspective, it's a great experience, but too hot. But besides the heat, everything is like top notch. Then there are other parallel worlds. People, like local people, Qatari, I never interacted with them. Actually, I haven't got the chance to talk to local citizens, and I have no idea like what kind of lifestyles they have. The only thing that I know is that their government actually takes a good care of like local citizens, and they get quite a lot of money, they get opportunities, they get, I guess, whatever they need for living a comfortable life. And it's possible because the amount of citizens here is very low once again, and Qatar is incredibly rich country that got its richness like I believe 30-40 years ago, when way more natural resources were discovered. I'm not gonna get into history of this, I'm quite like weak on this point. Anyway, what I was talking about. So I have no idea what do like local citizens actually do. I just know that they live a very decent, very good level of life that I can't even like think of. Then there is the third parallel world of wealthy, not wealthy, but well-paid Western professionals. I'll call it this way. They live really comfortable life. the people I was talking to a few days ago, they were coming from Europe, they were having very good position in their companies. Every month, they told me, like, in average, they people in their company expected to get anything around $10,000, plus apartment, which is like huge, even for one individual person. They have great lifestyle here. And the fourth parallel world is migrant workers who have not as good positions here and who struggle a lot, who earn way less money and who still work a lot. And these worlds, they barely interact with each other. I try to talk to people here and see what's life like here, but still I don't have a great understanding of it. Just 4 days here, being curious about this place. Yeah, so I have quite a few other things to share, but I think we are getting closer to the borderline of this district, so I'm gonna show you a bit. And I'm a little tired of like walking and talking. It's been more than 15 minutes already, so just show you places. Very spacious rooms, well designed, well lit neighborhood. The architecture is intentional, I would say intentional. It's just they carefully planned this stuff. If you want, you can get some clothing, local brand, I believe. I don't know. Adidas right next to it. Is it Adidas store? I don't know. At least this one, this door, not lit door, looks like Adidas. There are some other stores over here. And we are walking along the tramway lanes here. Okay, I'm actually mistaken about the part where I wanted to show you like the beginning of the old style district. So I'm gonna walk a bit longer. And let me think, what else like culture shocks I had here. So a few days ago, I met somebody who works in a McDonald's. A person from Kenya. She showed me around, and I was really curious to know the details of how she got into Qatar, what's her experience of living here, why did she choose Qatar as her destination. So basically, I asked a lot about her story and was just listening to it, trying to understand what's life like for people like her. And while walking, she also shared quite a few things about like little local things that I saw, I observed, but I didn't understand what is actually going on. And one little detail that she shared with me is that there were some guards patrolling the area, driving like just electric vehicles. And I was like, okay, the guards is just driving, seeing if anything is okay, if everything is okay. And Qatar is incredibly safe country. All people that I talked to, they told me Qatar is super safe country. I'm talking about like physical safety and also about personal belongings safety. So that person was not patrolling for making the place safer, according to the words of my new Kenyan friend. That officer or local guard was patrolling just to see if anyone misbehaves, not endangering other people, but just misbehaves in a local cultural way. She said people here are not allowed to show too much romantic things publicly, like holding hands affectionately or kissing on the streets, which I didn't really understand what exactly the rules are. She couldn't explain that well enough, or maybe she thought that she's explaining it understandable way, but for me it was a brand new concept, so I didn't really get the entire point of it. But according to her words, it's a very common situation for migrant workers to be deported just because they get caught by holding hands or just showing some public romantic affection. I haven't googled about that yet, and I want to Google and clarify like what exactly it is going on about this thing. I'm not quite sure about it yet, but that's what a person who lives here 2 years told me, and I was like, what? Really? I don't know if it affects only people who work here like long term and live here, or does it affect also tourists? I'm traveling alone, so I don't have any chance to find that out on my personal experience. So anyway, that was the last kind of little culture shock that I wanted to share today, even though I have multiple others. Now we are getting getting up of this escalator. We just went through this underground crossing. That area is the area, like the city area, the city district that I showed you, with beautiful modern buildings. And here, look the contrast. The colors of the buildings, they remain the same, but they look smaller, more old style, while buildings over there look way more modern. Very interesting contrast. And I was walking here with somebody else, like that person who is coming here to work from Europe, and he said that he suspects these buildings were like built recently, just replicating the ancient style. But in reality, most of these buildings might be just modern, built not long ago. Anyway, let's walk for a little bit more, and then I'm gonna say goodbye to you, and I'm gonna walk in one of these buildings and request some tea, because I'm like so thirsty right now. Interesting thing that it's like air conditioners all around here. The cats hang out around them, and I'm not sure if it's working actually. No, this one is not working. That one is not working. Is it working here? Oh, that's working here. Yeah, have a good night. Interesting. So a lot of ACs, but they actually work towards the restaurants. Of course, that is like obvious thing to do. That's not for people who are passing by. That's for people who actually stay inside the restaurant. So it looks literally like that. So I literally AC the street. Let me turn the camera and show you. They literally AC in the street, just like this. And this restaurant has way like less ACs, which is crazy, because today I saw another like street AC system, not the one that is using like full-size air conditioners, but the one that is built in the infrastructure of the street. Literally, there were like some holes of kind of construction inside the street, inside the road, that was delivering a lot of cold air, just pushing up cold air into the street. And there were like hundreds of tiny little platforms like that. I filmed it. I'm gonna show that in the episode from Qatar. For now, thank you so much for being with me, guys. Let me know what you think about my little culture shocks here. It was quite random walk, quite random talk as well. Hope that was interesting enough to hear. Спасибо and пока.